Flawedcast. Flawedcast! Get in the arena.
Alright, I want to welcome everyone to a new episode of Flawedcast. I'm here with my battle-ready cohort, partner in crime, Jason.
Well, Bill, I'm feeling very American today.
American?
Yeah, I mean, started out, picked you up this morning. We headed over to get a little breakfast. I had me some pancakes, bacon, and sausage. You had some, what'd you have?
Corned beef hash and bacon.
And bacon, I mean, it's a pretty American breakfast. And then what we do, we headed over to...
Exercise their constitutional right.
Absolutely, man. Fired off a couple hundred rounds out of the AR that's been sitting in my safe for 3 years now without firing a round through it.
Thank you, Governor Northam.
Yeah, thanks, Governor Northam. He definitely inspired this.
And now,
I bought myself a brand new tactical bag.
Brand new tactical bag.
We problem solved an issue with the clip, which was pretty cool. You problem solved it pretty good. Give you credit for that.
There's no I in team, but there is an a-hole.
We fired off a bunch of rounds. You shot the lights out of the place. I mean, no pun intended. Now I'm enjoying a Sam Adams Boston Lager, getting ready to talk about what makes this country so great, or what's trying to take that away. I'm feeling pretty good about it.
Want to thank everyone. We're
growing, Bill.
Yeah,
we're growing,
really,
which excites me. That means people are hopefully getting in the arena.
But I think truth is contagious, and that's one of the things that people try so hard to quench. To quench the truth. That voice of truth, the voice of reason. People always try to silence that because truth is contagious. Truth is infectious. Make sure you follow us. We are now on flawedinc.com.
Oh yeah, that's on the World Wide Web. Dun, dun, dun. Yep. We are moving up in the world. I mean, just to give you an idea of what's happened so far in 2020. So our studios have been renovated by Will himself. With help.
Yeah, my friend Allie.
Allie and Shandy really pitched in. Bill's just always surrounded with beautiful women, so it's no surprise that women were helping him out, and he didn't call me up to help. But no, we have these beautiful renovated studios, which is fantastic. We have a website now, which is exciting. There's a long way to go and get the website where we want to get it, of course, but it's there. You can definitely go there to find the episodes now, which is great. There will be a full library eventually of all the episodes, but there are several there already. Really exciting is we have some new equipment ordered, and we will have new equipment and a new sound.
Yes.
A new sound coming up very soon. Hopefully in the next episode we record.
We appreciate this. All the support.
Yeah, all the support's appreciated. And it's just nice that Bill and I are just so independently wealthy that we have all this time to just do these things.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no. We both have full-time jobs, too.
Right.
Almost forgot.
Yeah.
Almost forgot. So, folks, get in the arena, man. That's what we're saying. Follow us. Get involved.
Yeah.
Education. Bill, you were just saying a quote this morning, and I want you to say about true education.
True education doesn't teach you what to think. It teaches you how to think.
Yeah. So, hopefully that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Is we're giving you factual data. We're giving you our thoughts. We're giving you links to sources that you're not going to see in the mainstream media so that you can make your own decisions.
Sure. And it's also, when we present things, it's always through the lens of the scriptural, the spiritual background, and in context with historical figures and historical situations that we have the benefit now of being able to look back upon and judge how successful or how large of a failure those were. So whenever we are presenting an analysis of whatever topic, this week, the whole idea of Sic Semper Tyrannus, why we are fighting tyranny, what tyranny is and why fight it, everything that we're going to be sharing with you is coming, once again, from that historical analysis, from looking at things in the context of current events and scriptural and spiritual background, and that's important to know. And you can filter whatever you want through that. You can, say, hey, this is the links of the resources they're discussing, but I'm going to come up with my own opinion. Awesome. You can listen to us and disagree and turn off. That's awesome, too.
Where can they listen to us at, real quick?
You can listen to us on anywhere you hear podcasts. We are on YouTube. We are on iTunes. We are on Spotify, Google Play. I just started a SoundCloud. And anywhere you listen to podcasts, Flawed Inc., Flawedcast CLE. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Gab, Parler. Shout out to Parler. Those are our people there. Love that site. But Flawed Inc., Flawed CLE. Send us messages. Actually, we've been really getting some traction on Instagram too, so we thank the people there. Freedom-loving, open-minded folks. And
we want to throw one more thing out. We want to throw an invite out. We have a new email address, which
info at flawedinc.com.
Yep,
and we also still answered flawedinccle@gmail.com.
Right, definitely. But info at flawedinc.com is our new email. What we want to do is we want to put an offer out there.
An invitation. We are going to, one of the things we're going to do on the website is kick off a blog here pretty soon. And we're definitely looking for some folks who might want to write an article or write a blog that they would like us to put up on our blog. This isn't just us. This isn't about us. No. This is about, when I say us, I mean Bill and I. This is about we the people. And I'll say this too, like if you want to write something, I for years have been a professional writer, so I will edit grammatically, not your content. Make sure that all the commas and periods and everything are in the right
place.
place.
Isn't North Korea? You're not gonna.
No, hey, listen. Even if you have a dissenting opinion, as long as you present it with the facts and you're not an asshat, that's okay. Right. We have this platform. It's starting to grow, and it would be very selfish and short-sighted of us not to say, hey, let's everybody come along. This is we the people. And one thing I hear a lot from people is like, hey, I think it's great you're doing this. I wish I had a voice. Well, you know what? We are offering you an opportunity to have a voice.
Right, where you don't have to commit to doing it every week or anything like that. Email us. We'll set it up. But we can do that. But we're also looking for guests, man. We'd love to have some guests on.
Yeah. So this is, we want to grow, and the way that we grow is together. And there's no big me in life. We can't fight tyranny alone. And one of the things I love most about the different news sources I listen to is that they are very inclusive, and they allow other people to express and to share things, because we don't have the whole horizon in our view. We only understand a microcosm based on our experiences, based on our education, and what like God will speak to us or whatever. Just as we have different points of view separately, we also know that other people have different points of view. They have different experiences. They have the wealth of knowledge in other areas. So please, flawedinc@gmail.com or info.
Get in the arena with us.
info@flawedinc.com. So back to the purpose of this episode. This is called Sic Semper Tyrannus, which thus always the tyrants. It's Latin for thus always the tyrants. And another translation would be this always happens to tyrants. Now, a couple things that are important to keep in mind is when this started, this is the cry of the Roman conspirators after Julius Caesar was killed around 4 BC. Another interesting fact about this is that after John Wilkes Booth shot Abraham Lincoln in the Ford Theater, he jumped down from the balcony to the stage, and he yelled Sic Semper Tyrannus. But once again, this is also the Virginian state motto. With God, all things are possible is Ohio state motto, which is a Bible verse. But the reason we're talking about this has just really been on my mind when we were watching all the events that occurred on Martin Luther King Day with the march, with the news. Everyone kept saying there's going to be this, it's a white nationalist rally. It's, there's armed militias. This is what the mainstream media popped out.
They painted it like these militia groups, like that. Those are the folks fighting for the right to bear arms or something. That it's all these crazies.
Right.
Oh,
and
it's horrible.
No, and what was beautiful about that, they estimated over 25,000 people came from literally across the nation to show solidarity. There were not only white people there were black people there were Hispanic people there were Asian people there. Literally the entire spectrum. There were men, there were women. Every demographic from what I saw was represented. And it was really interesting. We were talking about this earlier today. Is I saw a meme that had like a black dude, a white dude, a Hispanic, like 4 or 5 different guys that were all different nationality, different races, and it said worst white supremacist rally ever. It's important that when we're talking about tyranny, and this is something that has really been resonating in my heart for a while, and I want to talk about where the impetus of that kind of started, but it's important that we realize, we understand what tyranny is. That's kind of an old-time word. Like when you read the Bill of Rights, when you read the Declaration of Independence, when the more you start to get into like a Sam Adams, not just his lovely beverage,
right,
but John, his brother, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Patrick Henry, these kind of gentlemen who, obviously Thomas Jefferson, who shaped the foundation of our country, they understood the idea of tyranny and oppression. So the first thing I really want to get into in our notes is actually the definition of tyranny. Can you go ahead and share that?
I absolutely will. So we got 6 different definitions here.
It could be applied 6 different ways.
Right. Arbitrary or unrestrained exercise of power. Despotic abuse of authority. 2. The government or rule of a tyrant or absolute ruler. 3. A state ruled by a tyrant or absolute ruler. 4. Oppressive or unjustly severe government on the part of any ruler. 5. Undue severity or harshness. And 6. A cruel or harsh act or proceeding, an arbitrary, oppressive, or tyrannical action.
Arbitrary, unrestrained exercise of power. Literally what that's saying is without limits, using authority with no checks and balances. We talked about this all the time, understanding our governmental system and understanding the incredible foresight and wisdom of our founding fathers, understanding things like the Electoral College, understanding things like the 3 branches of our governmental system. There are extreme check and balances, and what's really disheartening is that when you see things, like these impeachment trials, like, with Governor Blackface, baby killing, Ku Klux Klan, Grand Dragon, Northam going above and beyond, using unrestraint, abuse of power. And my question is, especially like when I talk to, or when I hear like these congressmen, congresswomen, I'm thinking, who are you? Where are these checks and balances? So this is why in this hour, it's very important. A, it's important to recognize what tyranny is, but B, exercise most powerfully, most predominantly, the idea of peacefully airing our grievances, which is a part of our First Amendment protection. Not only freedom of speech, not only the right to worship whomever you choose, but it's also the freedom to assembly and the freedom to petition our government for change. It's important that we exhaust those. And then there is the Second Amendment, which we do not advocate violence. We are not calling for any kind of armed resurrection or any kind of armed resistance in that regard. But that we do have to acknowledge, and we talked about this earlier, that the Second Amendment is the greatest unveiled threat in any kind of governmental experiment ever.
And I want to be clear about the Second Amendment. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again and again and again because everyone needs to understand. Actually, I'm going to say 2 things. The first thing I'm going to say is the Founding Fathers did not look at the future of, okay, this may happen or this may happen. That's why we have to write this into the Constitution. They looked at history and said, how do we stop this from happening again, and this from happening again, and this from happening again, and this from happening again? And that is how they wrote the Constitution. That is why we need the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is what really allows our country to work the way it does.
Uniquely work the way it does.
Unlike anyone else. And the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, is not about hunting, okay? It's not what it's about. It's not about protecting yourself at home. That is
hunting and protection.
Those are both pieces of it. The main purpose was to fight tyranny, so that if our government tried to take us over, because our government doesn't run this country, the people do. That's why we have elections. That's why we have the Electoral College. That's why these things were built. So if someone was trying to become tyrannic, right, and take this country over, that we would be armed and could defend the rights of our country. That's the purpose of it. That's why we need and should have semi-automatic weapons, which are pretty normal and standard. That's why we should be able to have 30-round clip capacity. If we're going to sit here and say, and I don't mean to get off, but I'm just going to say real quick, because I got to defend this piece real quick. Everyone says, well, what could a 30-round clip be used for other than killing a bunch of people? Well, if our government tried to attack us and take us over and control us and change this country, then we do need to protect ourselves against that, protect this country against that. And let me tell you what, you're not going to do that with a pea shooter or a BB gun or a bow and arrow. That's the reality to it. And we need to be able to defend ourselves against tyranny. They have a military. That's the reality of it. And we need to be able to defend ourselves against that in case it was put on us. That's not far-fetched because it's happened.
Sure.
Time and time again.
Well, once again, we had this episode 3 or 4 episodes ago. Oh, that can't happen. It is happening. And
absolutely is happening.
Evil is subversive. Evil is long-suffering, we discussed. And that's why it's important that we are ever vigilant against tyranny. And, one thing I want to talk about, and this is something I have conversations about with my friends that are churchgoers, and this is something I want to talk, even people that are more docile, I would say. Now, if you're a conservative by nature, typically that means you are not just conservative politically, but in all aspects of your life, financially, morally, whatever. So people who are more conservative tend to be more reserved, tend to be more, hold their tongue a little better, a little longer. So there is this idea sometimes that if you're conservative, whether you identify that politically, morally, fiscally, whatever, that there's weakness. And sometimes that is misconstrued, that you shouldn't fight back. You shouldn't stand up. You shouldn't speak out. And what I want to do is because everything that I try to do here is based on Scripture. And there's two different scriptures I want to read and share with you. The first one this is from Acts chapter 4. And just to set this up, in Acts chapter 3, there were two apostles, Peter and John, and they were walking by this place called the Gates Beautiful. And there was a blind dude who was begging. And he's like, hey, you have any cash? Right? I'm paraphrasing. And Peter walks up to him and says, silver and gold I have not, but what I have, I give unto you freely. Be healed in Jesus' name. And he takes the guy's hand. He heals the guy. God heals him, right? At that point, they started a political upheaval because the power of that day was threatened. They were arrested, they were seized, and they were brought before, basically that form of legislation. So, Jason, if you could read Acts 4, 16 and 21, if you don't mind. This is from the Amplified Version.
Saying, what are we to do with these men? For the fact that an extraordinary miracle has taken place through them is public knowledge and clearly evident to all the residents of Jerusalem, and we cannot deny it. But to keep it from spreading further among the people and the nation, let us sternly warn them not to speak again to anyone in this name. So they sent for them, and commanded them not to speak as his representatives, or teach at all in the name of Jesus, using him as their authority. But Peter and John replied to them, whether it is right in the sight of God to listen to you and obey you rather than God, you must judge for yourselves. For we, on our part, cannot stop telling people about what we have seen and heard. When the rulers and council members had threatened them further, they let them go, finding no way to punish them because of their fear of the people. For they were all praising and glorifying and honoring God for what had happened.
Now read the next right underneath that.
But Peter and John spoke right back. Whether it's right in God's eyes to listen to you rather than to God, you decide. As for us, there's no question. We can't keep quiet about what we've seen and heard.
This is important because what is happening is this extraordinary thing happened. People witnessed it. So this wasn't something this couldn't be like a conspiracy theory. This couldn't be something kind of brushed under the rug, if you will. This is something that was seen. This miracle we just previously discussed was something that was seen. And these tyrannical forces who wanted to stop these kind of things from happening. Basically, they wanted to stop the spread of the gospel, spread of the news about Christ. And I love what it says here. It says, but to keep it from spreading further among the people, right? So we had talked about truth previously. Truth is contagious. Truth is one thing that cannot be bridled. It cannot be withheld. It cannot be contained. When they said, and I love the responses, I put it in two different versions. For our part, we cannot stop telling people about what we have seen and heard. And I love, he says here, there is no question, right? There is no doubt. We are not going to stand idle to these tyrannical forces that are oppressing us. Because what this is, what they presented to this gentleman that God used them to heal was freedom. This man, his whole life was changed. He was healed so that he could get an occupation, build a life, have a family.
Be in control.
That is freedom.
Of himself.
Right. Not only himself, but he can then become a contributing member to society. He can then tell other people, hey, listen, there is a better way, right? That's that truth that we're talking about. Now, contextually, in our age, it's the same thing. We always talk about these natural laws. Like, Jefferson wrote, it is self-evident. We have been endowed with our Creator with certain unalienable rights. This is what we talk about all the time. And one more verse I just want to share, and then we're going to get into the meat and the bones here. Some other things. A roaring lion and a charging bear, that's what a wicked tyrant is over poor people. That's Proverbs 28, 16. So once again, roaring lion, like this unbridled, powerful thing. That's how tyranny works. Unless, like Peter and John said, there is no question we cannot keep quiet about what we have heard. A couple things, I want to share, a couple quotes. And I guess for me, just a real quick snapshot of the journey to understanding tyranny is there was a movie that came out in the autumn of 2019. It was just called Harriet. And it was about Harriet Tubman, who was an extraordinary woman. Once again, a woman who was led by the hand of the Almighty. God, that providence was all over her life. But she was a slave. She ran away. She eventually was one of the people that helped found and spread freedom from tyrannical forces, putting men and women in shackles in the form of the Underground Railroad. And when I saw this movie, it was so historically accurate. It was so poignant. Like, I felt something in me change, saying, this is a cause. Fighting to deliver freedom to people is a cause worth devoting oneself to. And this is like a big thing for us. And
she got in the arena.
She did, absolutely. A couple of her quotes, I had reasoned this out in my mind. There was one of two things I had a right to, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would have the other. She also said, I would fight for my liberty so as long as my strength lasted, and if the time came for me to go, the Lord would let them take me. This is when we harken back to the words of Patrick Henry, I know not what course other men may choose, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. This is that sentiment that one needs to have. Once again, echoing John and Peter, there is no question. As for me, there is no question. It's that all-in idea of freedom. And I have a couple other quotes here from gentlemen that I just love. I draw inspiration from. Jason, go ahead and read the ones from those other ones.
Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. You know, this takes me back, Bill, though, when you said, someone reached out and said, man, I wish I had a voice. You do have a voice. We're giving you another platform, but there are a lot of platforms out there that you can be a part of or start your own. And what we're trying to do here is exactly what we're trying to help out with what Martin Luther King Jr. was saying right there. We want folks to get in the arena. And that's what Martin Luther King Jr. is saying right there. Get in the arena. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. When we don't get in the arena, when we stand by and watch things because the risk is too great. You know, it's a decision that has to be made. It's important to speak up. It's important to say the things. It's important to, again, not necessarily push everyone to see your way or the highway. Everyone is allowed to have their own opinion. But man, it would be a lot better if we could all talk about it, if we could all share our thoughts and feelings instead of being silent. Because this is how tyranny is built. They're trying to keep you silent. They're trying to oppress you.
Well, the thing with tyranny is that people that acquiesce to it may believe that if they capitulate long enough, eventually they will be able to gain their freedom. And that's never how it works.
No.
So I think it was Benjamin Franklin who said, we either hang separate or we hang together. And he wasn't talking about, hey, let's go get some wings after we're done recording and hanging. Right. He was literally talking about a rope and a noose. Go ahead and read the other one.
All right, so Malcolm X. Power in defense of freedom is greater than power in behalf of tyranny and oppression. Because power, real power, comes from our conviction, which produces action, uncompromising action. I want to read this again. Power in defense of freedom is greater than power on behalf of tyranny and oppression. Because power, real power, comes from our conviction, which produces action, uncompromising action. Malcolm X. Wow. It's true. I mean, it's very true.
That's really very eloquently but simply put. You know, and I've just done a lot of studying on the life of Malcolm X, and it's really interesting. He really wasn't so much known at the time being a Muslim as more of a civil rights activist. He had a big change in his life at the end. Nonetheless, think of the man what you will. What he is saying here in letter and in sentiment is 100% accurate. I find no wrong or no fault in what he says. And the word in what Martin Luther King Jr. said, the day we remain silent, you have a voice, use it.
All right, Walt Whitman. There is no week, nor day, nor hour when tyranny may not enter upon this country if the people lose their roughness and spirit of defiance. Just another really well-put comment. Again, it's all about having the voice. And these are all saying the same thing. We have to have the voice. We have to get in the arena. We can't be pushed around, and we certainly can't sit back and say, well, we vote for the government officials and they'll handle it the way it needs to be handled. We need to get a lot more involved than we've ever been, because that's how it's gotten to the point it is. Yeah. We have become silent. We have become dependent on them the government, elected officials, making decisions and doing things without consequence. It's gotten to the point now where there's going to be major consequence on us, we the people.
Well, look at this way. So even with the example you use, we are not a democracy. We are a representative republic. I don't know if you have, but I'm proposing this question to anyone asking. Has anyone ever contacted their congressman with a grievance? If the answer is no, I would say that means either you are completely in step with your representative, and that's incredible, or there is a disengagement with that. The thing with tyranny, like we were just discussing with what Jason was saying earlier, the unrestrained exercise of power. If we aren't consistently holding leadership feet to the fire, we hearken back to exactly what Jason just read in regards to Walt Whitman. where it says, if the people lose their roughness and spirit of defiance.
Right.
I know I've contacted people in the past. Now, I've not heard anything about it, but...
It's power by numbers.
Well, exactly. This my mom used to say, squeaky wheel gets the oil. This event happened this week, and I remember when I shared this with you, you were like, I love when you get engaged. I'm going to word it that way.
All right.
Your verbiage, and you're like, ugh, you know, because that to me shows that you care. You are migrating from that we the sheeple to the we the people
Absolutely.
mentality. So I know people give me garbage about this all the time, but this news organization's history and record for me is unmatched in regards to others. And one of them is Infowars.com. I love that website. You know, the hosts, there's a lot of different people there that are connected with that I love. But one gentleman in particular, his name is OWEN SHROYER. He was just arrested in Washington, D.C. And what this gentleman did was he put a piece of duct tape over his mouth and wrote the word censored. And then he had a little
8.5 by 11, normal size piece of paper.
Just a piece of paper. And it pretty much said, the Democrats are trying to silence me, find out why, and there was his website. The man just stood there in the rotunda where the day previously there were hundreds of people for the impeachment of the president being loud, carrying big picket chanting.
Signs.
Right? And literally this man was standing there with a piece of duct tape over his mouth and hold up an 8x11 sign. He was just sitting there. Go ahead and read those notes.
The article will be posted. So what you're doing is considered an active demonstration, one Capitol security officer tells SHROYER, adding, if you don't cease and desist, you will be arrested. SHROYER is later told a small paper sign he's holding up is considered a demonstration, and that the Capitol is a demonstration-free zone, despite anti-Trump demonstrators frequently being allowed to protest at the same location. Owen was in D.C. this week not only to cover the Virginia gun rally and Women's March, but to face charges for his arrest last month after he disrupted Trump's impeachment proceeding.
When Jerry Nadler was approaching some of the people in Congress, and this was all over mainstream news, Owen SHROYER did this, he stood up, and I know I sent you this video and you loved it.
It was awesome.
He stood up and said, basically, Jerry Nadler, you have committed treason. What you are accusing the president of, you yourself and the Democratic Party has committed. And he was, forcefully removed from the Hall of Congress. And it was a big news event. When you poke the bear, or what's the saying? You mess the bull, you're going to get the horns.
Yeah.
Right. Some people will still mess with the bull.
Right, and this goes back again to what we said here. There is no week or day nor hour when tyranny may not enter upon this country, if the people lose their roughness and spirit of defiance. As well as, Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter, and this matters a great deal.
When he approached Jerry Nadler, he may say that he was making a public display or whatever. I don't know what you want to say about that. But what he did was he approached an elected official who we the people are the employers of, and
That's right.
voiced a legitimate grievance. Right? He wasn't saying like, you're hiding colonies on Mars from it wasn't some weird, really out there weird stuff. He's like, you're committing treason and nobody's calling you on your BS. That's what he did.
And that whole...
Just to move forward from this story, as of yesterday, I found out that he spent like a day and a half in jail. All charges were dropped. No one will be held to account for what he did, which, once again, there was nothing unconstitutional about what this man did. No one's going to be held to account because once the charges are dropped, that means that there is no one to say, this guy called for this gentleman to be arrested. Now, in the video I went viral, there were like 6 guards approaching this guy, once again, with a piece of duct tape on his mouth, holding an 8x11 piece of
saying
paper.
Not a word, not running around, not jumping, literally standing still in one place, in a suit,
professional looking man.
Yep, and a piece of paper.
And
that's it. I mean, literally, that was it.
And the one guy had his hand on his hip like he was going to grab for his piece. And I'm like, you can see he's holding the sign. I believe, by and large, most of the police in America are decent, but I will say there are some that are.
There's some, always.
This is what I like to say was using a bazooka to kill a mouse. It was ridiculous. So he was released.
But
all charges were
they
dropped.
helped him prove his point.
No, exactly.
He knew it was going to happen. That's why he did it, because he knew that they were going to leave the Trump protesters alone, which they did, and that if he came in and
called shenanigans
and just said, I'm being silenced when they weren't, that because he's known as a supporter of the Republican Party, that he would be, something would happen.
He would be targeted.
Yes.
He had that event with Nadler a little earlier. Obviously, mess with the bull, get the horns, poke in the horn.
And he did nothing wrong. He doesn't get physical or violent or push. He constantly asks Tell me why.
Right.
I don't just mean in this. I mean, everything he does, he's always asking the protesters, explain yourself. He's more willing to explain his point. He's always asking, and no one explains anything to him. No one does. No one does. They just keep silent about it because, well, that's what happens when there's no factual data, right, Bill? Just because isn't a really good reason.
Another article I want to bring to your attention. This was published May 2nd, 2019, so this is still somewhat recent. This is from the Washington Post. This article says, Facebook bans extremist leaders, including Louis Farrakhan, Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos for being, quote-unquote, dangerous. Can you go ahead and read, please?
Absolutely. Facebook said on Thursday it has permanently banned several far-right and anti-Semitic figures and organizations, including Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan, InfoWars host Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, and Laura Loomer for being dangerous, a sign that the social network is more aggressively enforcing its hate speech policies at a moment when bigoted violence is on the rise around the world. Facebook said it was going to remove the accounts, fan pages, and groups affiliated with these individuals on both Facebook and its sister site Instagram after it reevaluated the content that they posted previously or had examined their activities outside of Facebook, the company said. We've always banned individuals or organizations that promote or engage in violence and hate, regardless of ideology. The process for evaluating potential violators is extensive, and it is what led us to our decision to remove these accounts today, Facebook said in a statement.
So why this is important, what's going on here is we have to look at these 4 people that they've chosen to ban, which are very, very interesting choices. And I love how they put right, far right. And I also this is going to address a larger issue, which is the notion of hate speech. So what's interesting about these 4 individuals, first off, they're really, the odd thing is that Laura Loomer and Milo Yiannopoulos are Jewish. I don't know exactly how the anti-Semitism works into that. Maybe one can make a case for Louis Farrakhan, but Alex Jones, I've never heard him say anything anti-Semitic, but what we have to realize is that there is nothing far right or alt-right or even conservative about a Louis Farrakhan. First and foremost, Milo Yiannopoulos is a libertarian, but he's also a gay pundit. Laura Loomer actually is, I would say she's probably more of a libertarian, like independent commentator on things. She's actually running for her congressional district in her area, but it's been really difficult because she's been banned on most platform. What we need to understand, once our voices are silent, we then lose the ability to be vocal. So we do have the right to remain silent. That doesn't necessarily mean that's a right we have to exercise at all times. What I really want to talk about is the notion of hate speech. Who labels hate speech? Or social justice? What is social justice? You have the Bill of Rights, you have the U.S. Constitution, and we talked about this earlier. The Bill of Rights, the Constitution sets up expectations in our country that if you adhere to and meet these expectations, you will live a happy and hopefully prosperous life, generally speaking. If not, there will be some penalty or some consequence of that, correct. Hate speech, there is no definition of that. Social justice, there is no definition of that. Just as somebody may be offended by what I believe or what I may say, I may also be offended by what they may say. What happens is when you live in a society like ours, there is that risk of being offended, but there's also the reward of you don't have to listen to that person and you don't have to agree with that person. You don't have to capitulate. You have the ability to listen to another podcast or listen to another, whomever, right?
And also to say, I don't agree with that person.
Exactly.
Even if that person is a government official.
Exactly. And the reality of it is if we continue on this path to silence these people, Farrakhan, Jones, Yiannopoulos, Loomer, not just these people, it's also I know a gentleman, Steve McCrowder, another guy like Gavin McGinnis, these are guys that really aren't necessarily conservative, but they've been kind of pushed into this conservative, alt-right, far-right gulag just because they are slightly right of Pelosi or Schiff or whomever the case may be.
The reason that they have to label them the way they label them in order to remove them from Facebook is because Facebook says that they're a platform, not a publisher. Not a publisher.
Yeah, and that's...
as a platform, you have to be fair and open and equal to all, unless someone is dangerous or against the law or something like that. So they're using that as their excuse to control what goes on their site. That's all that's to it.
Right.
They're simply, just like all sorts of other things that happen to be happening right now in the country, just utilize something else to silence these folks we'll utilize another way, right? Well, it's just...
You don't have to burn a book. You just
That's
remove
right.
it. And just to elaborate, if you don't understand what Jason just said in regards to a platform versus a publisher, think of a platform like an internet provider or like a phone provider, be it like a landline, whoever has those, or like your cell phone. Jason and I can call each other and have a conversation about anything. That can't be interrupted because we are paying for a service. This is a platform that is providing a method for Jason and I to speak over a distance from one another. When, it was called the Net Neutrality Act. And this is the last thing that Barry Santorum signed into law when he left office. And it gives these social media giants the ability to walk a line that is most beneficial to them. If they want to be a platform and be selective in who and what they allow, they can do that. If they want to say, no, these people we designate them as hate speech and they're dangerous, so they're removed, they can do that. Once again, there's no accountability. It's tyranny. It's that idea of being antithetical to the First Amendment, that freedom of speech. So what you have here is these organizations doing whatever they want and biasly allowing or prohibiting any kind of free speech. Now, I know that, like the episode that we talked about, A Kingdom Divided, like Michael Moore sent a tweet to Iran, like to, these like, leader of Iran, like these terroristic regimes are allowed to have Twitter accounts and Facebook accounts, but someone like Alex Jones or someone like Milo Yiannopoulos, Louis Farrakhan, they can't. It's the utter hypocrisy, and if we are not ever vigilant, when we lose our roughness, when we lose that act of self-defiance, and these things go unmatched, that is where we kind of find ourselves at.
Right, and the thing is this, there needs to be more than a handful of folks getting in the arena, right? If it stays just a handful, if it's just a few, especially this day and age, because of social media and all these things, they can find ways to silence a few folks or try to at least redirect so that it's harder to find them, harder
shadow
to
ban,
see them,
different
right?
things like
all sorts of things like that. What we need to make sure is that there's power in numbers. We can't, like, InfoWars is great, but we can't say, well, InfoWars is handling it, so I don't need to. Yeah, you do. Subscribe to some of these shows and casts and listen to and watch them, all of them. From whatever side you want, I don't care. Look at it, find information and respond and say things, but get involved. We need to fight for this country because it is.
Well, and that's one of the things, like
scary.
You had said, like, when they interview people, like, why do you believe this or why do you believe that? Oh, I don't know, I feel that way. Feelings are great. Like I'm a very feeling fueled person. I'm not speaking against that, but what I'm saying is that I like to believe theoretically that a lot of things that perpetuates or fuel my feelings are my understanding logically of the infringement of tyranny in this regard. So when I selectively see people being blocked for quote unquote hate speech, logically I feel angry because you had like the leader of ISIS or Al Qaeda still having public accounts, and you got a guy like Alex Jones who just says off the cuff stuff which doesn't really hurt anybody. Well, you have an evil and tyrannical leader of a group that beheads people and puts it on the internet for people to see. Justice is blind, but I mean, good God almighty, give me a break.
No, I hear you. And as you were saying, when you ask folks a question specifically about why do you say this about this person or why do you agree with this, typically they don't have an answer. And this, when I say they don't have an answer, they have an answer. Their answer is because, and the reality is it goes back to what you said about education. Why don't you say it one more time?
Real education is being taught how to think, not what to think.
That's right. And these folks are being told what to think. This is where the whole sheeple thing comes from. They listen to one person say something or a couple of people that are all together, a group, say something, and so it is. No research, no looking into things, and no factual data, and definitely no fact checking. And I'll say this about, like, Adam Schiff, for instance. If you listen to some of the things that he said in this hearing in the Senate, they're completely misleading. He's reworded things
blatantly.
Yeah, it's a very simple fact check. There's transcripts. He said that one thing was said, and in the transcript it wasn't said that way at all. Just leaves out things or adds his own words. It's just unbelievable. And all these people are out there saying this person's evil or this person's bad or this person's a racist or whatever. All right, you have the right to feel that way. All I'm asking is, if you're going to hold up a sign and call someone a racist, have something to back it up other than a feeling. Because if you call me a racist, my big triggers, just so everyone knows, there's three things. for me that trigger me. If you call me a liar, a cheater, or a thief, you better be coming with some proof. Those are my triggers, because I have built a life on not lying, cheating, or stealing. I believe very strongly in that. So if you're going to label someone, especially label someone on social media or in a rally that's on national television or something, if you're going to throw names and label people, man, be ready to give a factual reason why when asked. Because they did this. Okay, but or just because, or you already know, or I can't believe you're asking that. Those aren't good reasons. I mean, could you imagine if I just started publicly calling you something? I don't know you. I've never spoken to you. I just, I have a friend who's friends with you, or a friend's cousins, aunts, uncles, nephews, niece's brother knows you and says that you're an asshole, that I should just be like, yo, Jane Doe's an asshole. I mean, that's based on what? Based on no factual data. That's all I'm asking. If you're going to smear someone, have some data, have some facts.
Yeah.
Make sure it's the right thing to do.
Not because the attractive airhead on the picture box told you so.
Yeah. If you want me, when I say that Adam Schiff's a liar, I can literally show you where he's lied.
From his own mouth. From
his own mouth, where he has lied in the last 48 hours, let alone the last few years. That's what I'm talking about. If you hear me say something, if you ever hear Willie Will or me speak about an individual such as Northam in Virginia, Bill called him a few names earlier today. And we have data to back all of that up, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, with Northam, he's gone on public syndicated TV and radio shows talking about post-birth abortion. In his college...
Literally said you can kill a baby after it's born.
Yeah.
I'm about to be
baby comfortable. Yeah, he's also. There's been pictures of him surface in blackface. There's been pictures of him surfacing in Ku Klux Klan. I mean, actually, I believe it was in his college yearbook that these pictures of him in blackface were surfacing. So, any accusation isn't necessarily an accusation any longer if there is fact. An accusation is there's almost like a reasonable doubt within that, but a fact is, there's verifiable evidence that, Governor Northam wants to murder people. I'm putting the abortion thing aside. When somebody is born, they're a human, they're here. But what he's saying is post-birth abortion.
Let's not even get into it.
Right, but what I'm saying is there's verifiable evidence of these things. It's not speculation, it's not gesture, it's not things said in jest because we don't agree with whatever. The ultimate point, and just to kind of bring this back around, the whole idea of Sic Semper Tyrannus, even the irony that in Virginia, which that is their state motto, that these egregious laws are being perpetrated against this people. And even deeper irony, the Revolutionary War, for all intents and purposes, started in Virginia. The Civil War started in Virginia, and so once again, there's a deep irony, but thus always to tyrants. It is important to acknowledge. It's important not just to acknowledge, but to stand up and, like John and Peter said, there is no question.
Yeah. So we talked about what tyranny is earlier. We gave the definition of tyranny. And Bill, what is this? Do you know off the top of your head, or can we look up the Second Amendment?
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
So the part I want to get from you was the beginning part. They should make no laws that infringe upon those rights. And just so everyone understands, infringe. Act so as to limit or undermine something. Encroach on. The laws that this governor is trying to pass infringe upon the right to bear arms. Period. End of story. Would you agree with that?
I would. Absolutely.
So when I say that he's unconstitutional, that he is not following the Constitution on which he's sworn to protect, that's exactly what's happening. It just makes me absolutely so upset what's going on here, and how we have these certain politicians that are trying to control everything, trying to control the people, trying to control their states and cities and countries. This is exactly why the Founding Fathers wrote the Constitution the way they did, so that it can't be done. Government cannot get too powerful and take over.
One thing I'm learning for myself as I'm navigating life, I don't have anyone to be my advocate. I have to be my own advocate. I have to stick up for myself. If there's something that crosses my boundaries, I have to say something, because I don't, nobody else. That being said, that analogy in my own personal life is one to be extended to us in regards to tyranny. If we, the people, collectively do not come together and say, No. That is ultimately on us. And, one thing to think about is if these tyrannical forces treat us this way and we are, a well-regulated militia. Now, what will happen if and when the day or the hour comes upon us when we no longer have that natural right to defend ourselves? Anyone who believes it's, once again, hunting, shooting, shooting as a sport is incredibly fun. It's also a great stress reliever, and it's awesome. But
we're excited.
More importantly, free men become slaves not because they stand up to tyrants. They become slaves because they acquiesce and bow a knee. I hearken back to what Harriet Tubman said, the words of Patrick Henry, and the notion of freedom, being able to say, no, that's not right, in a civil way. Once again, always civilly, always try to discuss, try to have discourse, try to, on the free market of thought, bring your best suggestion, bring your best ideas, so that an escalation of violence or an escalation period doesn't have to occur. Engaging in the free market of thought, though, once again, when we talk about stopping speech, whether it be quote unquote hate speech, whatever that is, if somebody has the right to be offended by my speech, doesn't mean them silencing it should infringe upon my right to speak it. It's a duality. It's a balance. And be an adult. If you disagree with somebody, just say, okay, I disagree. Or turn the channel or whatever. Tyranny is trying to silence and end oppositional voices, oppositional ideas, oppositional theologies, if you will. Once we allow those things to be silenced, then we suffer a fate that has been repeated throughout history. And I'm just concerned that America is that last light of liberty shining brightly. Once that flame is extinguished, who's going to pick up that torch and run? Fight tyranny. Hashtag fight tyranny. Hashtag get in the arena.
Absolutely, man.
Hashtag knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
The real power doesn't come out of the end of a gun. The real power comes out of a mind. A free-thinking mind. Our last episode, we talked about the idea of an individual, a man or woman who can freely think. Knowledge is the ability to think, not the idea of being told what to think. So analyze what we're saying. If we are full of BS, email us at info@flawedinc.com or flawedinccle@gmail.com.
Just don't be silent, man.
Right.
Don't be silent.
Send us a message on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Parler, Gab, Flawed Inc. or Flawed Inc. CLE. Subscribe to us on YouTube, iTunes, Google, Spotify. We're now on SoundCloud. You can get all of our latest episodes on flawedinc.com. There's an audio version you can download. There's also the video version. Whatever you prefer, it's now there. If you're interested in speaking or having a voice and you want a platform, we are offering it to you. Email us, get in touch with us. You can even send us a message on our social media if you forget our email. We'll answer it. I'm always checking that stuff. And we want to be able to offer a platform. I will edit for grammar, not context, and we'll promote whatever, just like we promote our episode. I want to thank you guys for listening. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share. We have to stand together.
Absolutely.
If we don't stand together, like Benjamin Franklin said, we will hang separately.
All right, folks. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you soon.